Hello and welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman. Joining us right now on the phone from Washington, D.C. is Senator Marco Rubio of Florida. He has just proposed a new constitutional amendment that would take some of the sting out of Obamacare by invalidating the so-called mandate tax. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Senator, it's good to see you. Good to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, first, let's start with the IRS hearings on Capitol Hill today. Democrats are saying this is incompetence, unfortunate, wrong, but it's not an administration-wide conspiracy. Nothing illegal to see here. Congressman Jim McDermott, a Democrat from Washington State, highlighted the fact that IRS official Doug Shulman was a Bush appointee. He also blamed Republicans for targeting liberal groups under the last administration. This seems like it's devolving into another bitterly divided partisan issue. How can we turn down all this partisan bickering and get to the real issues and the answers that the American people need to hear?
Well, first, I think if Democrats have made the decision that they want to be the defenders of the IRS, they certainly have a right to do that, but I think that's a big mistake. The IRS here, and in this investigation, all it's uncovered is just a culture of crazy inside the IRS. I mean, you look at some of these expenditures they had on videos, Star Trek spoofs and Gilligan Island spoofs and, line dancing, and then these conferences they held with, they hired a painter to come in and do paintings for the group. I mean, it's just outrageous what they've done with taxpayer dollars. This is one of the most important agencies in the American government, which is required to apply our tax code and is now going to be on the front lines of applying Obamacare. So if the Democrats want to be the defenders of that agency, they have a right to do that, but I think they'll have to answer to the American people. I think what we need here is full disclosure, an open, transparent investigation like the type the House is doing, potentially an independent counsel, to look at exactly what happened here and learn once and for all what happened here. Maybe it was incompetence, and if it was, some people should be fired. But maybe it was more than that. We just need to find out. And I hope the White House, instead of stonewalling on this, will be cooperative and be open on it.
And what's worse to you, if this was just incompetence, and you talked about this is the IRS, one of the most important agencies because they get Americans' paychecks really before they get their paychecks, or if people knew about this and try to cover up at the highest levels, which of those do you think is worse?
Well, I think the cover-up is worse. Certainly incompetence is really bad, especially from an agency as important as the Internal Revenue Service. But if there was, in fact, a cover-up, and I'm not alleging that I have evidence that there is, but if, in fact, there was, that's criminal. So I think that's clearly worse, and not to mention, really scary. So let me just say, I think it's in the best interest of everyone to have an open, full disclosure process, a full investigation, oversight hearings by the House and Senate. Let the White House be transparent about these fake these secret email accounts and all these other things. Let's just put all this out there. Let's get it out there once and for all. Let's deal with it. Let's get to the bottom so we can move on to the other issues that our country's confronting.
A lot of issues, those emails you talked about, some Obama administration officials using private emails that can't be viewed by the public. Also, Kathleen Sebelius accused of illegally soliciting funds to implement Obamacare. A lot to get to there. But there are some Republicans out there saying there might be a silver lining to all this, at least in terms of the IRS here. And that is real comprehensive tax reform. To what extent can the IRS scandal help Republicans make their case for a simpler, flatter tax code?
Well, I think it reminds people that the reason why you have such a big agency is because the tax code is so complicated. The more complicated the tax code is, the bigger the tax code is, the more loopholes and twists and turns and regulations that it has, the more people you need to enforce it and apply it. And that's why the IRS is so big. It's because the tax code is so complicated. So I think that's one of the arguments in favor of, if you want to simplify the tax code, is in order to just downsize this agency. But a bigger and more important reason why we should simplify the tax code is to get our economy growing again. The cost of complying with taxes is a real cost on businesses. It's every penny that has to go to complying with these taxes is a penny that's not going to growing a business or expanding an existing business or opening up a new business. So I think that the complexity of our tax code is hurting economic growth and job creation in America. And so I think that's the number one reason why we should do tax reform.
Yeah, and under Obamacare, we'll see about 16,000 new IRS employees. A lot of folks concerned about that. Let's turn to the immigration reform bill. It's passed out of committee now, but there are still significant challenges ahead. Some of your colleagues, including Senators Grassley, Sessions, Lee, and Cruz, released a letter comparing the bill to Obamacare, saying that it rewards criminal alien absconders and deportees and undermines law enforcement, also contains extremely dangerous national security loopholes. Those exact words were in that letter. It also that it facilitates fraud in our immigration system. Also, Weekly Standard editor Bill Kristol said you should just walk away from this bill. You gave it your all, but it's not going to happen. You should just walk away. Are you starting to get a little discouraged?
No, I think it's a difficult issue. If it was easy, it would have been done a long time ago. I think the broken legal immigration system that we now have now is hurting America very badly. It just is. I mean, first of all, if we didn't have a single illegal immigrant in the U.S., we would still have to do immigration reform because we have a legal immigration system that is broken. For example, we are educating the world's best scientists, and then we are asking them to leave our country and go compete against us. These things make no sense. We have industries in America like agriculture that rely heavily on seasonal labor, but we don't have a legal system for those folks to come here in a consistent way. So we need immigration reform just to have a pro-growth, pro-economy immigration system. The second problem that we have is we have immigration laws that are not being enforced, partially because of an administration that doesn't want to enforce them, but partially because we don't have the tools or the mechanisms to enforce the law. We don't have enough fencing. We don't have enough border patrol. We don't have an e-verify system. We don't have a way to track visitors to our country when they enter and when they exit. So we have to do that as well for many of the reasons that these folks outlined, my colleagues outlined in their letter. And third is we have 11 million human beings, at least 11 million, living in the United States right now illegally. We don't know who many of them are. We don't know where they are. We don't know why they're here. And we can't continue to allow that to exist. Most of them have been here for longer than a decade. Many of them are not paying taxes. And we need to start finding out who these people are and giving, creating a path by which they can incorporate themselves into the American economy, but by paying fines, by starting to pay taxes, by undergoing background checks for both national security and crimes. And these are the kinds of things that we're working on. This is important for America. If we can do it right, we should do it. If we can't do it right, then it's not going to happen.
Well, we know how passionate you are about this issue. We've talked about the financial costs of doing nothing on immigration reform. You highlighted that just a second ago. But what about the political costs here for the GOP? If they reject good faith efforts by folks like yourself, Senator Flake from Arizona, Senator McCain from Arizona, what do you think the consequences will be if this is...
Well, here's where the vast majority of the American people are. The vast majority of the American people, and the vast majority of conservatives, by the way, are prepared to do immigration reform. They are prepared to modernize our legal immigration system. They are prepared to deal with those who are here illegally. They are prepared to do all of that, but only if we take steps to make sure that this never, ever happens again. In essence, they're prepared to do immigration reform, but not if it means that in 5 years we're going to have another 5 or 6 million illegal immigrants in the United States. That is a very reasonable position. That is a very reasonable ask. And that's where I think the Republican Party is and should be. And if we can pass an immigration reform that deals with these things and prevents a future flow of illegal immigrants, then I think that's good. And if we can't, if the Democrats decide that they're not going to support immigration reform because they don't want to support border security and other measures like that, then I think the American people will understand that we were not the impediment. But at the end of the day, I think it should always be about solving problems that are hurting America. And this broken legal immigration system, this status quo that we have right now, it's hurting America badly.
And I'd have to agree with you there. That really seems to be what this all hinges on is border security. What about that proposal that would put Congress in charge of the border control strategy instead of the Department of Homeland Security? Is that the vital change needed to maybe win over more members of your party?
Well, we're working on that as we speak, and I mean, the gist of it is that rather than turn it over to the Department of Homeland Security to design the border plan, let us design the border plan by taking input from experts and then mandating that these specific things be done. What I've heard from many members is that they don't trust the Department of Homeland Security under Secretary Napolitano to come up with an effective plan. So if they don't trust them to do it, then let's do it ourselves by taking input from experts and mandating that specific things happen in law and that these things be completed before any green card process begins. And so I think that's the direction that we're hoping to move, and we've been working with many of our colleagues to get those ideas in writing, and hopefully we'll have something to announce here pretty soon.
And I would also give the voters of this country more input on this as well. Let's move on to the passing of Senator Frank Lautenberg. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie says New Jersey will hold a special election to replace the 89-year-old Democrat who passed away on Monday. Some people had hoped that Christie would appoint a strong Republican to fill out the rest of Lautenberg's term. Did Governor Christie make the right call here?
Well, I don't understand the complexities of the New Jersey law. They look like they're, contradictory in some ways. So I don't really know what limits he had in terms of the legality of it. As always, I mean, he's a Republican. We expect him. He'll nominate or he'll name a Republican to that position here in the next few days. And obviously, in an ideal world, it would be someone who would decide to run themselves and could use their time here to strengthen their position. But at the end of the day, I think he has to look out for what's in the best interest of the state of New Jersey, but also someone that reflects his policy ideas. and what kinds of things he stands for. We could certainly use the help here over the next few months.
Yeah, things so tight on partisan lines in the Senate, it would have been interesting to see a Republican put in there at least until 2014. Last question, and that is Obamacare and your proposal for this so-called Right to Refuse Act. It would take away the ability of governments to tax people for things they do not buy. This would eliminate the penalty/tax on people who don't buy health insurance starting in 2014. Tell us about your proposal and why you're pushing it right now.
Well, as people recall last year in the Supreme Court, what the Supreme Court ruled was that Obamacare, the individual mandate that basically says if you don't buy health insurance, we're going to be punished with a tax or a fine, they argued that that was legal, that the Congress could force you, the Congress could pass a law that basically makes you buy something by punishing you through a tax. And so what we are proposing is a change to the U.S. Constitution, a constitutional amendment that basically says that Congress cannot make any law that imposes a tax for failure to buy a good or a service. Because that right now is the justification the Supreme Court used. That while they can't force you to buy insurance, they can force you to pay a tax for not buying insurance. And what we're saying is that that should be unconstitutional. I actually argue that it already is, but through this amendment we want to make it abundantly clear that it is. And so we've introduced that today, and we look forward to working on that with Congressman Palazzo, who is the House sponsor. Congressman Stephen Palazzo, so we look forward to working with him on this.
All right, Senator Marco Rubio, thanks so much for talking to you. A pleasure speaking with you again, and we'll hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
And thanks for watching Newsmax TV.